All right. So that is Social Justice Partners Los Angeles. We are looking to be your partners and partners to the broader LA community in moving forward this work of racial and social justice. And Sharon mentioned our team at the top. On this next slide, you will see an image of our team of 8. As of an hour ago, we have a 9th team member on who's with us today. Her photo will be up here as well, but on the call today, we also have Sharon, who you heard from, Michelle, Yolanda, Teresa, and On. And this is our fuller, amazing team who moves forward all the work that we do. All right, and I'll hand it back to you, Sharon.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you for the gracious pause so I could hit record. I always forget that piece. All right, so you'll see here on the screen a quote from one of our awesome friends and our Accelerator alum from our very first ever Accelerator program, Sonia Passy, who is the founder and executive director of Freefrom, reflecting on her experience of the Accelerator program back in 2017. So the Accelerator is a 9-month program. It begins in September and runs through till May. And throughout those 9 months, it's anchored by monthly cohort meetings. So the cohort are meeting every month, building community, learning from each other, and SJP is providing some coaching and support along the way on a couple of specific areas. We provide each organization with a $10,000 unrestricted seed grant, and there are opportunities throughout to raise more, in particular throughout our fast pitch component and through SJP networking. As I mentioned, the fast pitch training, this is a flagship training that you may also be familiar with. We've been leading this training in LA for probably 14 years at this point. So every participant on the Accelerator goes through this 10-week intensive process to hone a 3-minute pitch. You each walk away with a professionally filmed video of your pitch that you can use as marketing collateral and spread the word about your work. And that pitch video is shown at our annual Fast Pitch Showcase event. So we held that a couple of weeks ago. Some of you may have been there. And it's a celebration, not a competition. It's a celebration of the incredible work of LA systems change leaders. All right, so in terms of the sort of high-level structure of the program, as I mentioned, it's a 9-month program, and you can think about it in sort of three themes, 3 phases. So phase 1, between September to December, is really about exploring the practices, policies, and ways of being that lead to creating and leading liberatory teams. Phase 2 is fast pitch. So that's really focusing on your organizational messaging, connecting with your story of self and how that connects to the work you are called to do in this work, what you are asking for people to step up and help you with in your work. And again, that's a more intensive sort of 10-week process in the middle of the program. Phase 3 is looking at expanding your base. So this is where you are armed with your fast pitch. You've spent 10 weeks intensively working on your story and your messaging. And then SJP creates spaces to increase transparency and connection between our cohort and funders and our peers in philanthropy. So that's the rough arc of the 9-month program. And I just wanted to share here some of the amazing alum and partners that we've been really privileged to work with over the last 5 cohorts of the program, 4 cohorts. A pandemic year meant that one of our programs went for nearly 2 years instead of 9 months. But what you'll see here is a wide range of issues that our Accelerator partners are working on. So the program is issue agnostic. We're not focused in on a specific issue area. Instead, we're really looking for groups that share a common focus on addressing the underlying structures of whatever the issue area is that they've identified. So you can see here, we've worked with groups that are working on statewide composting, tackling Islamophobia, prison abolition, removing policing in schools, housing and homelessness, gender-based violence, just a really broad range of issues. Again, with a common focus on getting to the root cause of those issues. All right, we had the pleasure of working with Tafari Bain, who is the Chief Strategist at Ciclovia, one of our beloved LA institutions. And Tafari is sharing here about his experience in Fast Pitch and how Fast Pitch not only bolstered their organization's messaging, but was also a chance to reflect on and pivot their organizational strategy amidst the pandemic. And I want to highlight for you this figure up in the corner of the screen. So our last two cohorts, our 2019 to 2021 cohorts, in the months following Fast Pitch collectively raised $1.2 million for their organizations. So again, Fast Pitch is just it's a great platform and a really great privilege to be a part of, getting lots of eyes and supporters onto the work of great systems change leaders in LA. All right, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the time commitment. So we'll go into the details of the eligibility criteria shortly on the next slide. But one thing I want to uplift on this call is that we do ask that anyone applying for the program can commit to making all of these program dates. So again, you'll see we have a monthly convening from September to December. These convenings run between 3 to 4 hours. Beginning in January, you'll see a more intense rhythm of convenings. This is when we're in full Fast Pitch mode. So we're meeting twice a month between January till the end of March. We've included in here the dates that we are holding for filming pitches and for the Fast Pitch event itself. And following Fast Pitch, we have 2 program dates in May as we wrap up our cohort journey. So flagging these here just to acknowledge that that the investment of time is not insignificant, and we find that people get the most out of the program when they're able to make each of these cohort convenings and really invest in those relationships with their peers. All right. So eligibility criteria, and you can find all of this information on our website. But just to talk through some of the specific eligibility criteria points. So the program is open to those who are a 501c3 nonprofit or a fiscally sponsored project. We have a significant number of fiscally sponsored projects come through, and that is totally okay. Secondly, systems change focus. So this is a cohort focused on tackling the underlying root causes of the identified issue. And Christine will talk a little bit more about what do we mean and how are we defining systems change. We have a strong preference for LA-based organizations. We're really focused on the incredible opportunity for impact that we have in our backyards here in LA. If you're an organization that has headquarters elsewhere, we invite you to reach out to us and to tell us what your LA specific focus is. So just want to make that note that while it's a preference for LA-based organizations, if your headquarters are based elsewhere, reach out to us and we're happy to talk to you more about that. The program is geared towards those initiatives that are early stage. So when we say early stage, we mean ideally an initiative that has been running for at least 1 year and has at least 2 people who are dedicated full-time to the effort, whether that is paid or unpaid. We find that the program is particularly supportive to organizations who are in this early stage sweet spot. We also acknowledge and recognize how challenging it can be for earlier stage initiatives to kind of get their foot in the door when it comes to funding or partnerships in philanthropy. The next criteria point is around lived experience. So our cohort is focused on supporting leaders who have direct lived experience of the issues that their initiative is seeking to tackle. can attend all program dates. Mentioned those program dates in the previous slide. And in terms of who should be the organization representative on the program, typically that's an executive director or a CEO or someone with a similar sort of senior level position within the organization or the initiative. They should be someone who has significant responsibility and oversight over the success of the systems change work. So again, if you are thinking about a representative from your organization who maybe doesn't fit into one of those titles, please do reach out to us. We recognize that sometimes titles don't match up with the reality of the bodies of work that our team members are holding. So please reach out to us if you have any questions about any of those eligibility criteria. All right, I'm going to hand over to Christine to talk us through what we mean when we say systems change.
Great, thanks, Sharon. And Ivory and Robin, thank you for your questions in the chat. We will dig into these. These are great questions, and we'll talk about them live in the Q&A portion. I bet folks can keep dropping questions into the chat. We'll be doing Q&A very soon. All right, so just a few quick notes on what we mean by systems change. This is often where we get the most questions. So we wanted to dig in here a bit more now and just see if this helps clarify or if there are additional questions on this. So when we talk about systems change, we think about those underlying root causes of pressing social problems here in Los Angeles. So in that, a systems change initiative would acknowledge those factors, the political, social, and economic factors that contribute to social problems, and is seeking to tackle at that root cause. And we know root causes have many layers. So, you know, at the most root of social problems is racism and capitalism, right? And then there are many layers that sit above that. So what we invite you to think about is how is your initiative getting at those underlying factors at any level of the roots, looking at the social, economic, and political factors. So we'll give some examples of that. So on the next slide, there's more. So these are a few examples of folks that we've worked with in the Accelerator. So 3 issue areas you'll see on the left: homelessness, education, Islamophobia. So in homelessness, when we think about direct service, we would think about that critical work that folks are doing to move individuals off the streets and into a permanent place to live. That could also be food and shelter programs, substance use treatment. Those are some of the direct services that exist and that are critical in addressing homelessness. When we look at the focus for the Accelerator, it's in this right-hand column, the systems change work. It can be anything from removing barriers to public housing admission based on a criminal record, passing a bond measure for resources for permanent supportive housing, working in solidarity with people with lived experience to advocate for new policies. So those are some of the ways that our alumni have been engaging in systems change around homelessness. And that's some of the contrast that we see between direct service and systems change. And I'll say here, we see this as a critical and interconnected ecosystem. So we don't, we're not saying that one of these is more important than the other. And for this particular program, we're focused on the systems change side of this work. Similarly, in education, if we're looking at the direct service world, we might be looking at mentoring programs, after school programs, scholarship funds. Those are those direct service supports to individuals who are navigating our education system. When we look at systems change, we're looking at a couple examples here, might be working with the district to shift the way they teach, reformulating the delivery of education, thinking about project-based learning to align with a changing workforce landscape. Again, those are some examples of the ways that we've partnered with systems change folks in the world of education. So many more examples could be here. Those are just a couple. And similarly, Sharon mentioned one of our alum, Vigilant Love, who is working to combat Islamophobia. And they talked about these two pieces that go hand in hand. On the direct service side, mental health counseling and health services for Muslim Americans. On the systems change side, one initiative, a very concrete initiative that they were working on was encouraging our city, or insisting that our city reject funding from a policy called Countering Violent Extremism that further stigmatizes Muslim Americans. So that's, those were the two pieces of two of the pieces of the puzzle in this work to combat Islamophobia. So those are some examples, and then I think we've got a couple more charts here. So again, we can share these slides afterwards. We won't go into all the details here, but in summary, as you're thinking through, is my initiative direct service or systems change? Typically direct service, you're working with one-on-one in order to alleviate some of the immediate needs that folks are experiencing. Systems change, you may still be doing the one-to-one work, the community organizing, the working with small groups, but you are collectively working to change systems, structures, policies, resources. That's in that systems change realm. And then I think we've got one more set of questions on the next slide. So again, just some questions to think about as you're parsing direct service versus systems change. Again, are you working to alleviate an immediate need or working to change systems and structures? Again, both are critical. Are you seeking to alleviate the problem temporarily or long-term? Is there local empowerment, self-determination, or dependence? And are you working to set new behaviors, norms, values that ideally would make the initiative, would give you the potential to complete the initiative at some point? You can see an end point, at least to the goal you set out for that particular initiative. There is always more, as we were talking about earlier. The roots, when we look at root causes, there are so many layers. You can keep going deeper and deeper into those root causes, but that when we think about direct service, unfortunately, there is a need indefinitely, right? If we're alleviating immediate needs, and our intention is that is coupled with systems change that can ultimately, ideally, alleviate the needs systemically, right? So it puts the onus of responsibility on the system versus the individuals and the organizations who are supporting those individuals. All right, so that is a bit about systems change. Again, we go deeper here because we know this is a question that often comes up when we say Systems Change Accelerator. Folks have asked lots of questions about, well, I'm not sure if I'm systems change or direct service. So we hope this gives some guidance. As we say all throughout this, if you're unclear, feel free to ask us questions, or fill out that eligibility questionnaire that we'll talk about as part of the process. We've designed this so that it is lowest burden possible on the applicant to take that step of seeing if your initiative is a fit with the basic criteria. All right, Sharon, I will pass it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Christine. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the application process itself, just get into the nuts and bolts of how it works. So you can think about it as a sort of three-step process. As Christine mentioned, we did a bit of reflecting a couple of years ago on our application process, and decided to do away with relying on purely a written application form and move towards what we call an applicant workshop. So it's meeting applicants in person, learning in conversation, meeting your teams. So the first part of the process is to complete the eligibility questionnaire. So that is online now. You need to complete that by Tuesday, May the 10th, 11 p.m. PT. And we estimate that it shouldn't take longer than 20 or so minutes to complete the questionnaire. We've really tried to boil down to just the essential questions, again, to alleviate some of the written burden on applicants, and also for us to quickly understand what it is systems change-wise that you're working on. And our approach is really to sort of screen in. We're really eager to meet with as many groups who are working on powerful local systems change justice initiatives. So that's the approach we take with the eligibility questionnaire. So complete the questionnaire, submit that by Tuesday, May 10th. We will then invite eligible applicants to participate in one virtual applicant workshop. So we've given 2 dates as an option. There's one right at the end of May and then right at the beginning of June, but applicants only need to attend one. At that workshop, you will meet SJP partners and coaches who will act as coaches throughout the day. We facilitate the session as if it's almost like a mini accelerator experience. And our intention and our hope is both to foster conversation, relationships, and to give applicants a sense of who SJP is and whether you all would be interested in working with us too. So that's the applicant workshop. After the applicant workshop, we will be evaluating and notifying successful candidates or those candidates who are invited to take a position on the program by mid-June. So that's the 3-step sort of process. And I've put this in red text down the bottom just to really highlight and emphasize the importance of making all of those program dates. So if you're applying, we really encourage you to hold those program dates just so you have them there, and especially the applicant workshop date as well that you nominate. All right, so a little more on the virtual applicant workshop. As I mentioned, we moved from a written-only application to an interactive hands-on workshop in 2019. And what we heard from previous applicants, both those who were successful, but also those who weren't ultimately offered a place in the program, we heard that 100% of those applicants felt that the workshop added value to their initiative. They also, 91% of applicants also preferred the workshop over a written-only application. And we were pleasantly surprised, or it was just a really wonderful thing to hear at the end of that workshop, that participants appreciated the chance to be in the room with other nonprofit leaders to build connections and relationships, whether or not they were selected for the program. All right. Oh, and I think that the other thing I want to highlight here is at the applicant workshop, we'll ask you to bring at least 1 team member and up to 3. And really that's just knowing that systems change work can't be done alone. So we want to meet your collaborators and meet your teams. So keep that in mind when you're applying. Who will be the team members that you bring to the workshop? All right, and this is the evaluation criteria that SJP uses to reflect on candidates who we meet at the applicant workshops. So we really feel strongly about full transparency in the process, and especially how the decision making is made. So firstly, we're looking to understand the applicants are understanding and describing a systemic problem and proposing an aligned systemic solution. Ideally, if the problem is resolved, we're going to see positive impact on a really large scale in people's lives. Secondly, we're trying to understand an applicant's proximity to the issue. So we have a preference for leaders who have direct experience of the issue, and those who are regularly spending time with, receiving counsel from, insight from, those who are affected by the problem directly. Again, early stage, so we're looking for initiatives that have ideally been operating for a minimum of 1 year and have 2 people dedicated full time. And you might have some evidence that your model or your program or your action is either already working or looks like it could work. And then the last 2 pieces are around openness to learning and the collaborative spirit of our applicants. So it's a cohort-based model. It's 9 months. And there are opportunities for coaching and learning from each other throughout. So it's really important to us and really serves our cohort well to have members who are curious, come with a curiosity and an eagerness to learn and to share, able to take different perspectives, and are really looking to build relationships and prioritize relationships as an essential part of systems change work. So those are the selection criteria. And here is a snapshot of the eligibility questionnaire itself. So we'll send an email with the PowerPoint slides, with the link to the Accelerator application page. So this is what you'll see when you head over to that page. Again, should take about 20 or so minutes to complete. Just wanted to give you a look at what the interface was like. And I will pause there because that was a lot of information from us, and would love to open it up for any questions that you all might have. And I want to start by acknowledging, I know we had some questions in the chat box, so I'm going to take a moment to scroll through. So if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and just ask them verbally to the group, or you can pop it into the chat. The first question I wanted to get to was, I think Robin asked a question around the early stage nature of your initiative. Robin, would you be willing to share a little bit more about your question so that we can be sure we fully understand?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Robin.
Okay. Yes, our organization, we're fiscally sponsored, and we've been in existence since 2005. And I was brought on a few years ago when the executive director / founder was retiring. And one of the things, part of my journey as the executive director, was finding out that I had to completely recreate what the program was, because it had kind of been stuck and we weren't doing the work we needed to do with districts. And then during COVID, we also sort of recreated ourselves we created an online training model. And so we've kind of had two recreations, but we have been around for several years. So we have the same name and we have a good reputation with school districts, but I've had to recreate it. So I don't know if that disqualifies me because of under your guidelines. Did you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, I was just taking a long moment to unmute myself.
Oh.
Thanks, Robin. And Christine, feel free to jump in. I think my initial reaction is no. It wouldn't immediately disqualify you. As long as the work is working with a systems change lens, completely understand the context and surroundings, that wouldn't necessarily sort of disqualify you or make you ineligible. I think at this point it would be more about the initiative, ability to attend all program dates and all the other eligibility criteria.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Robin. And Ivory, I see you have your hand up, so welcome you to unmute yourself if you feel comfortable doing so.
Okay, thank you very much. So my question was, and maybe this is, broader to social justice partners, but just kind of watching your agency for many years, I've seen that the fast pitch has been like a centerpiece of your work. So, and I haven't always understood the dimensions of it, or, how it came to be as such a, centerpiece of your work. So I'm just trying to clarify, like, how was it determined that that is a critical tool or intervention for nonprofit agencies to have merited it being such a significant part of the Systems Change Accelerator? Does that make sense?
Hey, Lenise. No worries.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Ivory. So in terms of fast pitch, this has been at this point in our organization, our longest running program. And when we started a new chapter of our organization about 5, 6 years ago. And as we were embarking on a new moment and looking at our role in systems change, we had many conversations with our program alum, with community members, with folks who had engaged with us or hadn't. And what we kept hearing, particularly from alum, was that Fast Pitch was uniquely valuable to them in their journey for a couple reasons. And that was, of all the programs that we had run, this was the one that alumni said to us, definitely be sure to keep Fast Pitch with some caveats, with some changes. And one of them, as Sharon mentioned, is that we've shifted it from a competition to a celebration. But the uniquely valuable pieces that we heard from alum were twofold. One was that it gave them an opportunity to share their message with a much broader audience, an audience that they hadn't previously been able to reach. So we have an audience that ranges. When we were live, it was 600 or 700 people each year. And so it was both on the day, they had the opportunity to meet lots and lots of new people, potential new volunteers, new donors, new just supporters generally. And also they receive a video. Everyone who's done Fast Pitch has a video of their pitch that they can share well beyond the day. So there was a tangible benefit of being able to spread their message farther than they previously had been. And they also shared that the opportunity to hone a message was also valuable. So capturing what they do in a 3-minute pitch was also something that they appreciated. And I'll say we, in that, also heard lots of feedback about how Fast Pitch was run in the organization. So the shift from a competition to a collaboration was really important to us, and really centering the story of the leaders in those narratives. So really thinking of it as a story of self, as why the individual is called to the work that they do, and giving each presenter the opportunity to tell the story in the way that feels best to them. So those are, it has been an evolution over time, but it's something that our alum have continued to say is a valuable part of the program to them. So we have kept it up until now, but evolved it quite a bit.
Thank you. That's wonderful feedback. And, I appreciate that there's been conscientiousness to evolve the program in a way that has best value for the participants. And I remember the first time the wonderful Tamika Butler came into my consciousness was at the Fast Pitch I attended forever ago. So that's great. And I appreciate, getting that backstory, because I didn't know, and I know you've all been doing it for a long time. Thank you.
Yes, Tamika is amazing and was one of the people who was very generous with us in the early days of our new team to share her experience in Fast Pitch. Great, thank you.
I have a quick question. When it comes to the application, I know you guys mentioned evidence of the policies or system change that you're looking to change. Do we put that in the application of like the policy that we're looking to change, or what evidence do we add to that application to show what we're trying to change, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Garrett. So the short answer is no. In the eligibility questionnaire, we ask you to name the system that your work is seeking to address, and then to describe very briefly your initiative. So you may include some of that evidence within that description, but it's a pretty short, I think it's about 200 or 300 characters. So there's no specific sort of requirement about particular kinds of evidence. There isn't a separate question, but you might think about that as you're describing your initiative at that particular question of the form. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I may have to just email you, because I did submit last year, and I guess it was one of those things that it was said that it wasn't meeting those particular requirements. So I just wanted to get a little bit more clarity on that.
Okay, yeah, totally happy to email with you and to talk with you separately. And yeah, this is a great question for the group, that we're not asking for specific kinds of evidence. We intend to learn more about initiatives when we get to the applicant workshop phase. But what we're asking for in the eligibility questionnaire is really just around naming the systemic problem, and then hearing about the initiative as you're describing and understanding it.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Garrett. Andrew, do I see a raised hand?
It is a raised hand. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to say thank you for putting this together. I appreciate it. It's been very informative. I look forward to applying, and I hope collectively we all can fix all the problems out there in LA and beyond. So just really appreciate y'all putting together an informational workshop, because a lot of groups, a lot of orgs won't do that. So you know, it really goes a long way beyond just like visit our website or here's a PowerPoint via email. So that's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I mean, it is truly so exciting and a privilege for us to be in these spaces and to get to know more community leaders throughout this process. Ideally, we would have endless amounts of money and endless time and space to work with everyone. And we're really, really excited to learn about each of your work and the possibility of us partnering on the accelerator. So thank you for being here, and I'm looking forward to reading your application.